1 hour of scrolling. Here's exactly what it does to your dopamine receptors. Not in a vague, metaphorical way, in a measurable, biological, minute-by-minute way. And by the time this video is over, you're never going to look at your phone the same way again. Because here's the thing most people get completely wrong about doom scrolling. They think the damage is just wasted time, a lost hour, maybe some mild guilt. But what's actually happening inside your brain during that hour is a precise, sequential process that leaves you cognitively impaired for the next 2 to 4 hours afterward. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the neuroscience. So let's walk through it, minute by minute, because understanding exactly what's happening is the first step to actually doing something about it. The first 10 minutes. The moment you pick up your phone and open your feed, your brain doesn't know it's about to be hijacked. It just knows one thing: there might be something interesting here. And that single thought is enough to trigger a dopamine release. Now, before we go any further, we need to clear something up. Because if you still think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, you've been misled. Dopamine is not about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation. It's the signal your brain sends when it thinks a reward might be coming. It's the motivational fuel that makes you reach, seek, and chase. The pleasure itself, when it arrives, barely moves your dopamine at all. It's the chase that lights up the system. This is called the anticipatory dopamine response, and app designers know about it better than most neuroscientists do. So in those first 10 minutes, every swipe is a tiny gamble. Will this post be funny? Will this video make me feel something? Will this clip be the one that actually satisfies me? Your brain is running that calculation constantly, and with every uncertain outcome, dopamine is being released in small, rapid pulses, not huge floods, little hits, just enough to keep you going. This is actually the same mechanism behind slot machines. The randomness of the reward is the entire point. If every post was guaranteed to be interesting, you'd get bored immediately. But because some posts are amazing and most are forgettable, your brain treats the whole feed like a slot machine that almost paid out last time. And almost is the most addictive word in the human brain's vocabulary. At this stage, you probably feel alert, maybe slightly good. You might even feel like you're relaxing, and that feeling is real. But what's driving it isn't rest, it's activation. Your brain is not switching off, it's lighting up. And here's the part that changes everything. That activation has a cost. By the 20-minute mark, something has shifted. You didn't notice it, but your brain did. The anticipatory dopamine pulses are coming faster now. Your brain has learned the reward pattern of your specific feed. It's calibrated to the rhythm of the scroll. Short videos, fast cuts, emotional thumbnails, outrage content, funny content, sad content. The variation is constant, and your dopamine system is tracking all of it in real time. This is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because between minutes 20 and 40, most people actually hit what researchers call a hyper-dopaminergic window. Your dopamine release is higher during this period than it was at the start. You feel engaged, time disappears. You might even feel a mild sense of pleasure, even though most of what you're consuming is not particularly meaningful. But here's what most people don't realize. That peak isn't a sign that your brain is enjoying this. It's a warning sign. It means your dopamine system is working overtime to keep up with the rate of stimulation you're feeding it. Think of it this way. Imagine you have a volume knob controlling how loud your brain registers reward signals. At the start, the volume is at a 7. During this spike phase, it gets cranked up to a 9 or a 10. Everything feels a little more interesting, a little more urgent, a little more worth watching. But you can't run a speaker at maximum volume indefinitely. Something eventually has to give. In between minutes 20 and 40, your brain is starting to quietly prepare for that adjustment. The content that's doing the most damage here is the emotionally negative content. Outrage posts, alarming headlines, conflict videos. These activate your threat detection system, which overlaps directly with your dopamine reward circuitry. Your brain is wired to pay close attention to threats. And when threats are mixed randomly with entertainment, your dopamine system doesn't know how to categorize them. So it treats everything as high priority. It releases more dopamine to ensure nothing gets missed. The result is that you feel simultaneously anxious and compelled to keep watching. That paradox, where you feel bad but can't stop, is not a character flaw. It's exactly what the system is designed to create. And now, in the final stretch of your hour, the system starts to crack. Here's where the real neurological damage happens, and it happens quietly. Your brain has been flooding your dopamine pathways with signal after signal for 40+ minutes, and your neurons, the cells receiving all of these dopamine signals, have been doing something you can't feel, but you absolutely should know about. They've been reducing the number of dopamine receptors on their surface. This is called receptor downregulation, and the analogy is simple. If someone keeps screaming at you, you stop fully listening. Your brain does the same thing with dopamine. Too much signal, too fast, for too long, and the receiving neurons start pulling back their receptors to protect themselves from being overwhelmed. They literally have fewer antennas available to pick up the dopamine signal. This is not a metaphor. This is a measurable physical change in your brain. The density of your dopamine receptors decreases during sustained overstimulation. It's been demonstrated in addiction research for decades, and the same mechanism applies here. Now, here's the part that should genuinely concern you. By the time you put your phone down at the end of that hour, you think you're done. You think the session is over, but your brain is still in a downregulated state. The receptors haven't come back yet. The volume knob didn't just return to 7, it dropped to 4. And that has consequences that extend far beyond the hour you spent scrolling. You've put the phone down. Maybe you have to work now, or study, or have a conversation, or make dinner. Normal life things. But something feels off. You can't quite identify it. Tasks feel harder than they should. Concentration keeps slipping away. You feel a strange, low-grade restlessness, like something is missing, even though you just spent an hour consuming more stimulation than our ancestors would have encountered in a month. Small frustrations feel disproportionately annoying. The thing you sat down to work on feels unusually dull and pointless. This is dopamine receptor downregulation in action. Your brain's reward signaling system is running at reduced capacity. The neurons that were supposed to help you feel motivated to start a task, interested in a problem, satisfied by progress, those neurons are now receiving fewer dopamine signals than normal, not because less dopamine is being produced, but because fewer receptors are available to receive it. It's like trying to have a conversation on a phone where half the speakers have stopped working. The signal is there, the message is being sent, but the reception is terrible. And this is why doomscrolling before work, or during a work break, or right before you need to focus on anything important is so destructive. You're not just wasting the hour of the scroll. You're compromising the 2 to 4 hours that follow it. You're essentially borrowing focus from your future self and paying a rate of interest you didn't agree to. But here's the question nobody asks. What happens to people who do this every day? One session of doom scrolling won't permanently change your brain. But here's the thing about the human brain. It adapts to repeated patterns. It's designed to. It's the same feature that allows us to learn skills, build habits, and get better at things over time. Repeated stimulation of a pathway changes the pathway. The brain wires itself to match its most common experiences. And what happens when the most common daily experience is the dopamine spike and crash cycle of a phone feed? The baseline shifts. Over weeks and months of repeated overstimulation, your brain begins to recalibrate its entire dopamine system around that pattern. The resting level of receptor sensitivity starts to drop. Activities that used to feel engaging, reading a chapter of a book, working through a challenging problem, having a deep conversation, taking a walk outside, begin to feel genuinely less rewarding. Not because you've changed as a person, but because your brain's capacity to register reward from slower, lower stimulation activities has been chemically reduced. This is not a personality problem. It's an adaptation problem. Your brain is simply doing what brains do, adjusting to the environment it lives in. But the environment it's adjusting to is one that was specifically engineered by companies spending billions of dollars to maximize the time you spend inside their platforms. You are not fighting a bad habit. You are fighting an algorithm that has more data about your behavioral vulnerabilities than you will ever consciously possess. And the long-term result of losing that fight looks like this: persistent difficulty with deep concentration, reduced intrinsic motivation, a baseline level of restlessness or low-grade anxiety that it never fully goes away, the feeling that everything real, is somehow less interesting than it should be, and an increasing compulsion to return to the feed because the feed is the only thing that reliably moves the needle on how you feel. This is the adaptation loop, and once you're in it, willpower alone won't get you out. But there is a way out. The dopamine reset protocol. Here's what actually works, and it's simpler than most people expect. The goal of a dopamine reset is not to eliminate dopamine. That's a misunderstanding that causes a lot of people to try absurd deprivation strategies that don't work. The goal is to restore receptor sensitivity. You want the volume knob to come back up to a natural baseline. And you do that not by punishing yourself, but by reducing the intensity and frequency of overstimulation while reintroducing the kinds of real-world reward that your brain was actually built to process. Step 1 is distance and delay, not elimination. Distance. When you wake up in the morning, your dopamine system is at its most sensitive. The worst thing you can do is immediately saturate it with your phone feed. Give yourself 30 minutes before any screen. Your brain in the morning is primed for focus and learning. Protect that window. It is genuinely precious. Step 2 is reintroducing slow rewards. The brain recovers receptor sensitivity faster when it's regularly exposed to low stimulation, high satisfaction activities. This means things like exercise, which boosts dopamine in a natural rhythmic way. It means making progress on something that challenges you, because the dopamine signal of genuine achievement is one of the most powerful and sustainable sources of neurological reward available to humans. It means time in nature, physical sensation, meaningful conversation. None of these are as immediately stimulating as a phone feed, but they all train your receptors to become more sensitive. Again, not less. Step 3 is pattern interruption. Not all scrolling sessions start consciously. Many of them happen reflexively. Your brain reaches for stimulation before you've had a chance to think about it. The solution is not discipline in the moment, it's structural. Move apps off your home screen, use a physical barrier like leaving your phone in another room. Change the environment before the urge arrives, because in the moment of the urge, you have almost no power. Before the urge, you have everything. In step 4, which most people skip because it sounds too simple, is to make your real tasks more novel. Dopamine responds to novelty. If your work feels like the same gray wall every day, your brain will always prefer the infinite novelty of a feed. So break your work into smaller chunks. Start with a question instead of a task. Approach the same problem from a different angle. Give your dopamine system something to anticipate in the real world, and it will stop treating your phone like the only casino in town. You picked up your phone this morning. Maybe you scrolled for a while, maybe more than you planned. And at some point during that scroll, your brain was quietly turning down its own volume, reducing its own capacity to feel motivated, focused, and genuinely alive to the same. That's not a moral failure, that's neuroscience. But knowing it means you now have a choice that you didn't fully have before, because ignorance is not protection. You can't opt out of a system you don't understand. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If your brain is constantly recalibrating to match the most stimulating thing in your environment, what is your environment? Actually training your brain to become. 1 hour of scrolling doesn't just kill an hour. It shapes the mind that will show up for every hour after. And that mind is worth protecting.